Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. So this is a little idea I've had for using a few of these tapes we made the other day. I will link to that video if you haven't seen it, just building up decorative tape through masterboard techniques. And I've got all these leftover tape rolls, not necessarily from masking tape, some of them from packing tape when I moved. Still, I kept those, so those are the thick ones. Some might be masking tape, some might be ordinary sellotape. I've made a couple of these in festive form before. They can hang or they can actually stand as well on a shelf. These two are actually part of a trio that do stand on a shelf, but I couldn't reach to get the third one out. So they will just stand. They're really lovely decorative pieces to have around, and I thought it might be nice to just have a couple of autumnal ones that can either sit on a shelf or hang in some leafy branches, in a vase, something like that. So I've got some bits and bobs around. I've got a bit of dried moss. I've got some of my own dried flowers from the garden. I picked these up in a garden centre just the other day, and I'm thinking they might be quite nice centerpieces to go in the middle of here to celebrate that autumn glow that is still very much going on outside. What I haven't quite decided is, so obviously for this one, that's going to be the right width to take for one of these. Which one do I want? Might take this quite nice autumny one here. And I think it's probably going to go, simple as this, all the way around the roll. This may well have been a masking tape roll because I see that it's pretty much exactly the right width. So if and when we make some winter ones of these, they will also be perfect for creating wintry versions of these tape rolls. There we go. Yeah, it's going to go all the way around and then some. So I can trim off this slightly scabby bit. So, and I think it's going to be fine to sort of layer it over. Getting it on straight is interesting. If I pull it under some pressure, a little bit taut, I think I can get it to go in a slightly straighter line. There we go. And then I get to keep that little bit there. Let's trim to where we can see it wants to go. So, and then I've got another bit for something else another day. Just a little bit, but torn into fragments. That's going to be great. There's a little bit of overhang, so it's clearly not the exact same tape. But that's quite nice because that gives us an edge. And I think probably just some simple inking will complete that edge for us. Do I want it in brown or blue? Maybe I'll edge in blue actually. Pick up some of those bluish tones. Let's go with you. That's Beach Cruiser. And I'm just going to edge around like so. Simple as that. Nice and easy. Just covering up some of that card. If I decide that that's not good enough, I might take some gilding wax to it or something a little bit sparkly. But I don't want to get into Christmas yet. Festive creating, for me, it's really hard to start before December because that's just not the mood I'm in. I'm sort of inclined to do the same around the inside here and get just some of those autumn blue skies. I don't really want to decorate the inside of here. I don't think that's necessary. But just a touch of colour to lift it from the white, I think might be quite nice. So that's again just the blending tool's the exact right size. That's unhelpful. I have somewhere got a little blending tool, but that'll take much longer to cover the space. So my main question with this is whether I need to put in a shelf, as it were, to give me a flat surface, which I've done with both of these. So there's something for the house to stand on, there's something for the little snowman to stand on, or whether what I want to do is just build something a bit more organic in the base of here. I think probably I don't need to put in shelves. Let's keep things simple. So with these ones, these are wider than the tape itself. So I've got a choice. I could either have the tape going round the middle, which I think might be quite nice, or I could put the tape so that it goes, so that we close up the gap. I could put one of these and a narrower one on. I think I'm going to start by putting it round the middle and see how I feel about that. because I think that little white frame might be quite pleasurable, especially given it's sort of weathered where the tape's been torn off. It's weathered white, it's not a sort of glaring, shiny affair. It's quite a nice distressed look. And that one also is going to go round perfectly. I think that's quite nice because that draws my attention to what's going on here. I think anything else might get a bit complicated. Or maybe what I want, ooh, I know. Okay, so let's glue this down. Let's straighten up that line. And again, if I want to, I could even keep that little snippet, knowing how I do tear up any tapes I do use into quite small fragments just to add extra texture in places. And then let's close up the gap like so. Ooh, cutting right through that label there. Not to worry, that means we've got some numbers over here. And we've got some lettering over here. Not quite sure what's going on with you. Why are you sticking out? Let's trim you so you fit. There we go. So what I was oohing about was just wondering whether some of these fairly fine design tapes might make quite a nice edging for that. That could be quite cool, couldn't it? Is there an even narrower one? There are. These are the Tim Holtz design tapes, and they come in a number of thicknesses, and there are some very, very narrow ones. One of them is sparkly silver, so we're not going to be using that. What have we got tucked down there? No, that's quite wide. Oh, there's a narrow one, look. See, that's sort of quite an ornate trim. I'm not sure I really fancy that. But I have got one wide side and one narrow side, so maybe what I do is I go around with this. So anybody who was asking what you can do with tapes, this is one of many options. Using them to redecorate an empty tape reel. There we are. That's quite nice. I quite like that. Quite like how that gives us a burnished edge. Ooh, I wonder whether, so these design tapes are adhesive, but they're, as you can see, quite softly adhesive. Just wondering if I line it up with the edge of here rather than overlapping, I'll have a little bit to fold over the edge here. I'm just looking for where the join is so that I can have both my joins in the same place, so that I'm not later thinking, oh no, I've got the join of this one at the top and the join of this one at the bottom, so which way am I supposed to stand it? We'll make sure we make a bottom, as it were. There we go. So with that lined up with there, so that I still get to see my whole tape, I've then got, there we go, that's the way to do it. That's quite nice. And it gives me a little bit of edging around even the inner side of that, which I also quite like. So I'm just pressing it down. If I feel like it's peeling up, I'll put some glue on, but at the moment, that feels like it does the job. That's really rather nice with that brown frame. So, given I think that's probably going to be our front, I don't really mind what goes on the back now, so maybe I will just do the same tape again. Or, given I don't like it much, I might as well use up this one, just to fill up that gap. There we go. It's almost exactly the right width. It's not going to fold over, but if this is the back of our ornament, although thinking about it, if I hang them up, they might rotate. In fact, they will rotate if you hang them up. So front and back become a thing again. But then rather than tape overlapping, what I can do is, again, just ink the edge of here. And this time I think I will do it in brown so that it matches what's going on there. There we go. Nice. And I might just, again, use a little bit of brown on the inside of here, just to dirty up that internal spacing. Grand. So I'm going to put some tape on this third one, and then I'll be back to do some what's really known as assemblage, when you're putting together three-dimensional pieces, bits and bobs. That quite often means using something from everyday life, and I might be doing that as well. If I can find some rusty nails and things, they could be part of it. back shortly. There we are. I've got my 3 hoops to decorate. I've got plenty of this to use another day. Hopefully some of it before we hit winter, because otherwise it'll have to wait around for another year, much like other things do. So these die cut leaves we made a year ago, and they might be part of this. Not sure. As you can see, I've got my little box of pine cones and also a couple of acorns. So those are bought acorns, because they don't tend to last otherwise, so they're fake. I think they might be in real holders, however. And then other things that I've just picked up on my walk, little larch cones, little tiny pine cones, slightly bigger pine cones. They're clearly not going to fit, or one pine cone would be the whole of it. I mean, that's sort of art installation-y. Could do that. But I'm thinking, I've got these gorgeous Tim Holtz toadstools. I have made my own toadstools in times gone by. Are they around? Yeah, hang on. Ooh. So on this little box, I used some air dry clay, dust, I think it was, which is the good old one that's been around forever, and modelled my own little mushroom fungi toadstools, which we can do another day. But this is hopefully a speedy make. So yes, I am pre-bought. These are gorgeous little things, which you can tint in bright colours, or you can, as I think I'm probably going to do today, leave natural. Although I noticed this one's got a much browner tint to it, and so part of me is wanting to dull that to a cooler brown, just because that's my preference in browns. I like a cool brown over a warm brown. That's just giving it a little, it's quite nice, isn't it? Let's put a little bit of archival on that as well, just to tint the lid of it. So these are resin, very long lasting. They'll be absolutely fine. I think my base is going to be able to be a little bit of this moss, and I'm thinking, I have got green as well, but I'm thinking for this, let's stick to something fairly neutral, because I want the main colour to be the colour that's on the outside. Ooh, I'm just thinking, I've got some lovely, what do they call it? Slightly different stuff from this. Just gonna go and have a dig. I don't know. I've clearly put it in a safe place. But what I have found is this brilliant sort of meshy netting. They're not so big on Halloween precisely here in the Czech Republic, but they do go big on autumnal decorations. So this is the kind of thing you can pick up in the equivalent of pound shops or dollar stores at this time of year very easily. Pumpkins, leafy things, mossy things, and I always keep an eye out. Also garden centres, plant nurseries, those sorts of places that have little decorative bits and bobs. For the most part, it's very unusual for me to pick them up in season. For the most part, I try to pick them up in the post-season sales and then use them the following year, just in terms of bargain shopping, you know. So I'm thinking some of this just sort of tumbling out might be quite nice. Let's see if I can find my join again. If I can't find my join, then it doesn't matter, because it's so invisible, it's not going to bother me. I think we just want, as we did with the Halloween tag book, I just sort of want some bits of that randomly sticking out. And I think what I'm probably going to do is not try and do this in advance. I'm just going to glue and hope that I like how things end up. So this is a bit of my usual Cosmic Shimmer glue. We might get out the slightly thicker gloopy glue later, the Liquitex super heavy matte gel. I just think this is going to give us quite a nice bit of texture, movement, interest, detail going up the walls, little bits coming out part way up. I'm just pressing bits down into that glue, and bits are not pressed down, and that's going to do me. Where I do want it glued, we just add a little bit of extra. There it is. This is probably going to be tricky to see because we're working in a loop. I'm trying to tip and tilt it and trying not to get too much shadow in the way of what you're seeing. But it is going to be one of those processes where it's a bit of a mystery to all of us until it's done, which can be fun as well. Okay, enough trying to make that behave. More glue will be going in now because I'm going to put some moss in place. And again, just pressing it down. I will remove that little green tuft to get a bed of wintry, autumny, wintry. I mean, we are now. It's, what is it? As I'm filming this, 2nd, 3rd of November, something. I'm not sure. Something like that. So it is still beautiful out there. I'm still sharing pictures of glorious trees on my nature Instagram account as opposed to my art Instagram account. But you're starting to feel that morning nip in the air. There we go. That's quite good. Quite enjoying that. It's got a sort of presence. So maybe one toadstool in this one. And so he is going to have to lean to have some extra support. So I think he's going to have to go sort of to the side so that I can glue him both to the base and a little bit of glue on the side. And I don't think I'm going to put him in first because he's quite heavy. What I might do is rip into these little pumpkin guys and pick one of each of those. So we've got a lovely long one and a slightly shorter one. I think nestling in there, they're going to be adorable. And we might go for a couple of tiny pine cones as well. I'm aware, by the way, that the scale of this is completely up the spout. But I'm thinking of it as a sort of autumnal fairyland. I'm not going to be fussed about what sizes things are. It's been Alice in Wonderland, and the pumpkins have been eating one side of the mushroom and the pine cones have been eating the other side of the mushroom. Anybody who doesn't know their Alice in Wonderland is going to think I've completely gone crazy. So the pumpkins have got smaller, the pine cones have got bigger. That's what's going on in this story. So let's put another pumpkin over here, like so, and maybe nestle a slightly larger pine cone next to it. And all of this, you're going to need to kind of bed it in and then just leave it alone to dry. The more I faff with it, the more it's going to keep sort of bouncing up again. That's already quite cute in there. So time for some gloopy glue, I think. So this is the Liquitex, super heavy, matte, super heavy. And it's got a sort of cream cheesy, peanut buttery kind of a consistency, which is quite useful when you're gluing down slightly heavyweight things. And also quite useful for holding things in place rapidly. So I'm definitely going to put some on the base of here. And then I'm going to pick the side it's going to lean, and I think maybe that's quite a nice smooth side. Tuck some glue there. This will dry clear. For the moment, I just sort of want to make sure I've got enough on there that it's going to hold in this first instance. I don't know if you can see that already gripped the side quite nicely. As long as I leave it that way up. I'm wondering how upright I can get it so that it shows. But I'm not going to be able to show you this until everything has dried. So I'm going to prop that up, and in order to make sure these don't roll away, you just need something either side as you put it to dry so that it can stand upright and not go flopping around. What else can we put there? Yeah, a paint pot will do. Just something to keep it in place so that things can dry safely. I'm going to go on and put some of my other heavy duty things in so they can start to glue, and then I'll come back when we're ready to put in maybe some of these softer, lighter dried flower stems and so on. Back shortly. So just for once I've pulled the camera out of its holder before the end of things, because I managed to get this teeny mushroom to stand up by using the pine cones and the pumpkin to sort of hold him in place. He's now drying, held between those two things. So I thought it would be rather nice to try repositioning this guy. So I've got him in the middle now. Again, there are pumpkins and pine cones helping to hold him up. But then I've also got balanced each side, there is a clothes peg just leaning. There's a slightly heavier one at the top, slightly smaller one at the bottom, so that the weight is about right to hold him in that middle position. And I think once the glue has dried, those pegs will be able to come away and he'll stay put, because he's almost staying put already. He really is almost staying put already. But I just thought that it would be fair to show you the fiddly things that go on when you're trying to get things to stand up in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to put some moss and cloth into this one, and then, as I say, we'll head on to some florals and other bits and bobs to finish things off. I'm hoping these will have glued solidly enough for me to do a little bit of gentle work around them. That one seems fairly steady. I'm going to keep these little stands going so that things can stand up in between. No, that one's still wobbly. I wonder if there's a way I can firm that up a bit. If I could press this in from behind, that would give it a lovely firm basis. So let me just see. I'm sorry you didn't see any of that, because if I hold it on its side, then it's all going to go horribly wrong. This one is still wobbling. I'm thinking if I can push this pine cone in from the back, I'll be able to create a little bit more stability. So I'm going to try and drop some glue down into that hole there, and then push this pine cone up against it. There we go. So checking back in is a really important little step, it turns out, with trying to make sure that these are going to stay in place. So I'm now applying quite a lot of pressure, pushing that pine cone down towards the tape, but also towards the mushroom. The good news is that feels a lot more stable already. So I'm going to pop that back down, let that one continue to dry, and see what's going on with this one. Let's see how wobbly you are. Ooh, that's pretty stable. So that one's feeling all right, which means that I think I can go ahead with these two, adding in probably a little bit more in the way of dried stuff. Maybe a couple of nice little larch cones would be a nice addition. In fact, they would be lovely sticking up, wouldn't they? So let's just see if we can continue to play, just adding some little bits of, oh, that is adorable. So let's see what we can achieve. I'm going to keep putting these in between here. I'll get my gloopy glue back as well, and I think probably this one's going to be a question of just dipping that in there, creating quite a gluey surface there, and then inserting it in amongst the moss. And that I am going to let rest against the side, having moved the mushrooms to the middle. So I'm going to put a little bit more glue just on the back of there, because that's where that's touching the side of the tape reel. So in that goes. Again, this is unsatisfactory in terms of lighting, angles, all those things, but deeply satisfactory in terms of the end result, which I'm going to like quite a lot as a little autumnal decoration. There we are, that's nice. Let's see what else we can do. So I've got these lovely hydrangea petals. I think they could be quite nice because they're sort of like autumn leaves. I'm just wondering how much I can extract in one element. So that's a leaf and a couple of these little seed head bits, and that's really pretty. And because it's so light, it's not going to disrupt anything else that's going on. So I think we might try and pop that. If I pop a bit of glue into this side, there we go, and maybe heading up on that sort of mossy bit, just enough for this to touch in various places, and that's going to keep that in position over there. That's really rather enchanting. I'd quite like a little bit more over here, I think. Let's just check back in with the mushroom. It does want a bit longer to hold itself in place. When they're upright, it's fine. It's as I'm tipping it to show it to you that things are going wrong. But at some point I'm going to want to lie it down to photograph it, so it's just going to have to learn to deal with such things. I'm wondering if I can get a little set of larch cones into here. I think that might be quite nice. I don't want to knock the mushroom over as I do it. That's quite a nice little element, although I think probably we don't want that little bit at the end. So when you're working with natural elements like this, you do have to sort of just quite often let them do what they want to do. Let them go in the direction they want to go in. Work with them, not against them, because as soon as you start trying to tell them what to do, they tend to object. So that's quite nice at that side. I think again I might look at getting a little bit of hydrangea petal over this side. So another little snip of these. That's rather lovely, just the seed heads there. I wonder if that comes off by itself. Oh, that's gorgeous. Okay, so that can come up the other side. So if I dip, well, let's see. I want to probably a little bit on the backs of these, because that's going to touch the wall of the tape again. And then a little bit at the bottom that'll just check in with those. So it's a balancing act here between free craft supplies surprised by Mother Nature and pre-bought elements and stamped and stenciled and painted elements on our tapes around the edge. Just creating something that, yeah, is going to make me rather happy. I'd like another larch cone somewhere there. So far this one's got a real front and back going on, and I want a bit less front and back. I want it to be possible to enjoy it from both sides, but I think we might give it a bit more drying time to let that larch cone that side dry. Oh, they are cute. Let me see if I can show you that one with a little bit of tilt without the mushroom falling over. The key is probably to tilt it one way and then tilt it the other. Look, you can see that around this side I definitely want a bit more of one of these. Maybe just a shortish one. Maybe just that flower head. Let's see what that gives us. Yeah, that's quite cute. But maybe that one's going to get in the way. So again, I'm trying to work with what nature is giving me. I'm going to take off that one because I think it's a bit too much. And that's going to give me just a little touch of floweriness down here by that pumpkin. That's adorable. Again, this is one of the reasons I like the Cosmic Shimmer. The precision application of that allows me to put the glue sort of where I think I'm going to need it. Just let that petal come out round the side. I'll pop a bit there to encourage it. You can come there. Any minute now a mushroom is going to fall out. There's going to be nothing I can do about it. That's beginning to look a bit better from both front and back. If we had another little thing down the front here, I wonder if another pumpkin is too much around this side. Yes, it is. Question answered. You are going to annoy me if you won't stick back against that wall. So again, in with the precision glue and just encouraging that petal to go backwards, and then that's going to take that whole petal up and away. That's very cute in there. Lovely tape around the edges. That's not looking bad. I still think there's maybe, if you would come back against this wall, that would be ideal. I'm going to need pegs in action again in a second. So if I put some glue over here somehow, then pull this petal back against this wall, and then get one of these clothes pegs back into action, to hold this there until it's dry. Yes, you heard a crushing noise, but I think it's going to be worth it in the long run. You down there, maybe down just a little bit. We're too far up, that's what's going wrong. Down you go. Yeah. That's where I want you. That's where I'm going to peg you. Okay, let's let that do some drying. No, again, it's too far up, see? You probably can't see, but down in here, this one has now come away from the ground because I've been pulling it upwards. That's better. Down behind the pumpkin, that's where I want you. So as I say, yes, I'm working with nature, but I'm giving it some gentle encouragement to go in the directions I want it to go in. That is where I want you pegged. Okay, let's let you dry again for a bit. Keeping our mushroom upright. Yes, still seems to be gluing. Let's pop you there. Grand, how are you feeling? A good deal more solid. So that's this one. Front and back's already quite good on that. Quite like a little larch stem in there, if I can find one that's subtle enough. Maybe, yeah, maybe it's that one. Don't want you to go rolling. So that little sprig, just like so. Lovely little trio. Let's see where you might go in here. Up this side. There's already a larch cone on the floor here. That's a bit much. Do you know what? I'm going to leave this one a bit longer because it's still not quite stable. But it is going to be a question of coming and going, spotting those moments where it's ready for the next little adjustment, popping something in, and then cutting and running again. So I want a little larch cone down at the bottom here, so I'm just going to snip off you. Typical. Thanks for hiding right where I can't get you. It's really unhelpful. I want a little larch cone in there, just at the base of this hydrangea petal. I think that's going to give us a bit more depth and a bit more weight at the bottom of what's going on there. That's nice. And I feel like we could have something else here. Don't quite know what. That's a bit much, is it? What about a round one? Oh, what about an acorn? The acorns are all quite big. No, that's too much as well. Maybe it's another little larch cone. I've got lots of them. They're all over the place when I go on my walks. So I just need one of you. Yeah. Oh, that might be a good sprig for you when we get to it. So I just need an individual one for here. There we go. Maybe you there. That would be nice. So nestling in this bit of moss, bit of glue, press you in. And again, give you a bit of drying time to just get used to that. That I think is shaping up to be pretty adorable. Grand. So I'm going to leave them for a bit more drying time. You can see they're propped up again, waiting for when they're safe enough to operate. I'll make sure I close my glues because we don't want them drying out. But we're almost at the very final stages, I would say. So I've tucked a few more bits and bobs into there, little touches of glue to hold them in place. And I think the best thing to do is going to be to leave them to dry fully overnight, just so we get maximum drying time without fiddling with them any further. I've done what I can to prop things up or make sure things are nestled against other things. And then tomorrow what we're going to do is put some wire round that can either hang or can help to make them more stable if they're standing on a shelf. So that's the next and final step, but we're almost there, and I think they're pretty enchanting. I'll be back in the morning. We're on what I think is the final step. So with these two, I have already applied some wire. This isn't actually, let's wind that bit up. This isn't actually rusty wire, though it looks like it is. This is some garden wire that comes already brown, which is helpful because it gives you the impression of rusty wire without actually being it. And I think a nice fine little twine of that means you don't lose that lovely tape background, but you do have a way of hanging it up in some branches if you wanted to. But what you also get is, because you get a slightly more solid base, it is possible now to twist the wire so that that will be freestanding. And if you can't quite get it to be freestanding, then you can always just wedge it with a little bit of card or a little bit of blue tack, something like that, just underneath. But so far, I think that's adorable. Here's the second one. Also, so even more of the tape still visible on that. Just that fine twine of wire, little nestling cones and things. I've stuck some extra bits of, so we've got the blossom from the hydrangea, but there are also those little seed heads on those hydrangea stems, so they've created a lovely thing. And then there are also these ones that I find sometimes in the woods. I don't know what they are. I must do a Google image search at some point, unless somebody out there can enlighten me. But these mushrooms are now pretty set in there, so I'm fairly confident moving things around, turning things around, and hopefully I can lie them on their backs to photograph them. So this last little bit of wiring that needs doing on here, I don't think, sadly, any of these bits I've cut off are quite long enough, so I need another bit. I guess I've been starting with a piece about 80 centimeters long, maybe 70. I haven't measured it. Actually, it's probably not as long as that. It's more like 60 centimeters, which is about 25 inches. And all I've been doing is find out where the bottom is, which is sort of there, or where the top is more properly, and then holding it in position, making sure I've got enough for the hanging loop. That's sort of like so. Keep hold of that in position, and then I've just been wrapping round. Keep you out of the way for the first go round, creating a fairly firm twist at this side, so that's going to keep us in place. Leave behind the one that is my hook, come back with, oh hello. For some reason this time I've managed to only just cut it long enough, so maybe I was going 80 centimeters before and I just did 60 or 70 that time. It should still be able to make it work because I've got quite a long hook left over. I'm going to slide that under, get a little bit of slack, and slide that under so that I can then wind together or twine together at this side all those three pieces. So it's the bit that's come round, it's the bit underneath, and it's the overall hook. I mean, any kind of winding, anything to just get this in position, stable, and then because it's wire, deliciously, you can kind of mess around a little bit, create a little bit of movement like so, a little bit of twistiness, even maybe tuck it under a couple of times. And you've also got a bit of slack so that if it's not quite at the right angle, you can get it there. I'm very happy with these. I think they're going to look great on a little shelf. So you can see, again, it is possible to do a little bit of manipulation of this wire at the bottom to just get it to stand at the angle you want it to. But you can see I can now remove these bottles of paint that have been holding things up very helpfully. And we've got three beautiful little autumn ornaments. So I will, of course, dive in for a close-up of these. I might also try to find them hanging on, get them hanging on a branch in a vase or in the garden, and take a little short of them there, and that'll appear on the channel in the shorts at some point quite soon. juggling. Thank you, as always, so much for your company and comments. Always a delight to read. If you've enjoyed this, give me a little thumbs up down below. If you haven't already subscribed, I would love to have your company on this creative journey. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting all.